The name's Moore. Roger Moore. Hey everybody, my name is Brandon, aka the Brando Critic, and welcome back to another James Bond tier list. Today we'll be looking at Roger Moore's films. Now, I know when a lot of people talk about Roger Moore, they look back on his films and say, all of his movies are just full of just campy, over-the-top ridiculousness. Well, yes, there's a lot of campiness in his movies, but Roger Moore did give us many great James Bond 007 adventures, and I'm here to rank them for you right now. And of course, guys, this goes without saying, this is just my own personal opinion. Every single James Bond list will be different, and this is mine. So let's start with Live and Let Die from 1973, and I'm gonna put that, if it works, why does it always do that? Really like it. I really like Live and Let Die, and when you look at ranking online, Live and Let Die seems to always be at the bottom or at the very, very top. You can never find it right in the middle. And for me, I put it at the top because I really do enjoy this movie. And when you look at the James Bond franchise, you see that there's a pattern of them basically taking what's popular at the time and then putting it into a James Bond movie. And of course, you can definitely see that within the first couple of Roger Moore movies. Blaxploitation films were very, very big in 1973, so this is the James Bond blaxploitation movie. And it makes it very, very unique. With 24 films, you're bound to have some movies that kind of mesh together. And Live and Let Die definitely has its own distinct voice. And you can definitely feel that right from the opening song with Paul McCartney and Wings singing Live and Let Die. It's one of my favorite James Bond songs ever. And you can really tell that this is a brand new sound for a brand new actor for a brand new James Bond. And I still think it works so well. I listen to that driving down the street and I just want to just go full speed, and I feel like James Bond. Don't speed, by the way, guys, but it's a great song. And Roger Moore, he's great also, and he's not Sean Connery. You know, he brings some of that suaveness that he did, but, you know, he's more sophisticated and posh and more sarcastic and tongue-in-cheek. And while, yes, he doesn't really pull off those action scenes quite like Sean Connery did in terms of, you know, that ruthless, relentless killer 007, License to Kill, he definitely has the more sophisticated suaveness to him, but he really, really works. And I think in Live and Let Die, it was a great first performance. Then you have your Bond women, and then you have Rosie Carver, who is completely annoying and useless. She's probably the worst part of the entire movie. But then you have Solitaire, played by Jane Seymour, and she's very, very unique. You know, she's a voodoo woman, right? A psychic. And man, oh man, is she just smoking hot. Oh my God. Of course, that doesn't have anything to do with the movie. Just my own personal taste. And then of course the action goes for more of a comedy route with the plane chase and the boat chase, but there's still exciting scenes. And then we have Kananga as a villain, and he definitely seems very different than Blofeld and Dr. No and Goldfinger. He definitely feels very, very intimidating and very, very untouchable, right? It seems like every single time you get close to him, there's something that happens to James Bond, and he's a great villain. His death, on the other hand, is very, very campy, and it sets the stage for the rest of the entire franchise with Roger Moore. This is going to be a different James Bond. But where it all started, this is probably my favorite James Bond film of the Roger Moore era. I really like Live and Let Die. Next, we have The Man with the Golden Gun from 1974, and I'm going to put that one in It's Okay. And like how blaxploitation films were the inspiration for Live and Let Die, karate films were definitely the inspiration for Man with the Golden Gun. But to me, this film, there is so much happening in this movie that you feel like you're in a pinball machine and you're just bouncing back and forth. I'm just listing it off right here. There's some belly dancer with a bullet as a belly button ring. There's some special gun maker in Macau. Then you have Scaramanga's mistress. We have an MI6's office in a sunken boat. James Bond captured and put into a karate school at High Fat's place. Then his Chinese ally Hip with his karate nieces. There's a little boat chase with a racist deputy from Live and Let Die. He comes back, and a little kid trying to sell him an elephant. And then we have putting a woman in the closet just to bang another one. And the slide whistle over a great stunt. There is a ton of things that happen in this movie, and none of it is really memorable. The cinematography and just the entire movie I felt was just kind of bland. And Mary Goodnight is not the most memorable Bond girl. She's actually quite annoying. But the only saving grace in this movie, at least for me, is Scaramanga and Knick Knack and their little house of horrors. I really do like the Bond versus Scaramanga, kind of like a deathmatch duel in this house, and that is by far the most memorable part of this movie. And I do kind of have a soft spot for Lulu's song, but other than that, The Man with the Golden Gun is just okay. There's nothing really stand-outish about it. It just feels kind of bland. Of course, this is just my opinion, but Man with the Golden Gun, it's okay. However, I cannot say the same for our next movie, The Spy Who Loved Me, because I really do enjoy this movie. This movie is probably one of the most fun James Bond movies to watch. And after Live and Let Die and The Man with the Golden Gun, this was like, okay, we need Roger Moore to be in a classic 007 adventure. And that opening with James Bond skiing and going on that huge, amazing stunt, it still looks breathtaking today. And then you have Carly Simon's Nobody Does It Better. What a way to start off a movie. You have a great henchman in Jaws. You have a great Bond girl with Triple X who is like James Bond's equal. They're both agents and there's both this sexual chemistry with both of them and they're equals. It's not James Bond just holding the hand of some bimbo going on an adventure. No, these two characters work really well together and the action sequences are so much fun. That underwater Lotus is wonderful. And sure, while Karl Stromberg is not the most memorable or most menacing villain in the series, you do feel some very intense moments, especially at the end when he's trying to defuse the bomb. Like that one really had me on the edge of my seat. And this movie is just a ton of fun. It's probably one of the most cinematic James Bond movies. And even today, that Carly Simon song is just absolutely magnificent. And this movie is really great. And then we get to Moonraker, which is probably the most outlandish in the series, and I'm going to put that one on It's Okay. Like, the amount of silliness in this movie. It is quite fun to watch in some parts, because you're just like, what the hell am I watching? And like The Man with the Golden Gun, you feel like your head is in a pinball machine, just going from plot line to plot line to plot line to plot point to plot point. It feels extremely loose, and there's a ton in this movie. You know, you have the skydiving, you have Zero G Machine, you have that Venice gondola, which is probably the worst moment in the Roger Moore series of films. There's one scene in Octopussy I'll talk about later, but as for an entire sequence, oh my god, was that tough to watch. You know, you got the fight in the glass shop, you got the parade in Rio, the fight on the cable car, and the laser gun scene in space. What? Then you have the boat chase with the hand glider in the Amazon, a fight with a giant snake underwater, and Jaws comes back and he meets his girlfriend and he speaks! Like, oh my goodness, this movie is completely ridiculous. The villain, Drax, you know, he has some great dialogue, and he does actually act as a pretty menacing villain, but he's kind of like Stromberg, where he's not the most memorable. And then you have Dr. Goodhead as the Bond girl, and she's not as annoying as Goodnight in Man with the Golden Gun, but she just seems very disinterested in what's going on around her, and she's not the most interesting or, you know, there's nothing really special about her. Only her name, which of course is extremely ridiculous, but of course this is James Bond, Roger Moore's James Bond. So yes, there's a lot of things that happen in this movie, but I do find it quite enjoyable to watch because of just how outlandish it is. Not the best Bond movie in the world, but it's fun to watch sometimes because of how just ridiculous it is. But then we get to a more grounded James Bond movie with For Your Eyes Only, and I'm going to put that one in Like It. And a lot of people remember Melina as one of the best Bond girls this series has ever had, and I completely agree. You know, she's not just some blonde bimbo that James Bond is trying to save. Like, she actually has depth to her. And she can actually hold her own in an action sequence and in some sticky situations. And I actually do kind of get the chemistry between Melina and James Bond. You know, it's not just see each other right away and then bang, right? You actually see some chemistry. You actually see the story take place. And of course they do get together. This is a James Bond movie, so there's no spoilers there. But it does actually feel like it's actually plausible. Roger Moore is still great as always, although in this film you start to see how he's getting a bit older, but the action sequences are really exciting. You know, the car chase through Spain, the ski chase through Italy, and of course him climbing that giant mountain, which is extremely tense. While the climax itself is not the most memorable and the villain isn't the most memorable either, it is still a solid entry in the franchise. And while it has all the pieces that you need for a great James Bond movie, at least while watching it, it seems like it does not add up to the sum of its parts. You know, you go through the list and you see, okay, it's got a great James Bond, great Bond girl, a good story, not the most memorable villain, but some exotic locations, some exciting action, a great song. What's missing? It's just that oomph, right? When you're actually watching it, you're like, okay, I'm liking what I'm seeing, but I'm not feeling that excitement that I normally see in James Bond movies. But overall, For Your Eyes Only is an enjoyable time. Now we get to Octopussy, and what a name. What a name, right? I actually like Octopussy quite a bit. Roger Moore is still great as always, although, like For Your Eyes Only, he is getting older, and you can see that, and you definitely do not believe him in the action sequences. But there is one scene when he talks to Kamal Khan, our main villain, about dice, loaded dice, and it is just one of my favorite James Bond scenes ever, just to show how James Bondian he is. He's just so alpha. He can take advantage of every situation. He just walks in a room and you know that he's the man. And this scene totally shows off how great Roger Moore is in this role. It's one of my favorites. And the action set pieces are really well done too. You know, you have the pre-title sequence with the mini jet, you have the train fight, and of course you have a wonderful, wonderful action set piece for the climax with the plane. I mean, you can clearly tell that it's not Roger Moore flying up there, but holy crap, even for 1983, this stunt was amazing. It really is truly breathtaking. But then for those great action sequences, you have some really stupid ones. Like you have like the tennis fight in India, and then you have the jungle chase with that Tarzan yell. That is by far one of my least favorite moments in the entire franchise. It is just completely, like, what were you thinking? That Tarzan yell doesn't even sound good. Like, it doesn't even sound like it was actually coming from the jungle. It sounds like it was a bad recording in a sound studio. But regardless, you have Kamal Khan and Orlov as villains, and they do a great job in the movie, although I wish Orlov was in it more because he is just so over the top with the crazy Russian accent. We're going to go over here. Sorry for the bad accent, but you get my point. He is so over the top. I wish he was in it more. But Kamal Khan, he's very, very reserved. And of course, he has his big henchman, Gurpinda. And the plot was actually quite interesting, although it did drag in the middle with Octopussy herself and her island full of woman assassins. I feel like that was not really important, but it is still fun to see, especially when all of them are fighting at the end. This is an enjoyable movie. It starts strong, it ends strong. In the middle, it does kind of drag, but an overall fun movie nevertheless. And you know what? I actually do like All Time High by Rita Coolidge. I know that song is not very well liked by Bond fans, but I actually quite enjoy it, and I actually do like the score a lot also. And then we get to the shit one. A View to a Kill is not for me. Roger Moore. I love you, man. I really do. But it is clear that in this movie, you are too old. Your facelift, it's distracting. But before I totally just rag on this movie, some positives. A View to a Kill by Duran Duran is one of, if not my favorite James Bond song. It is so freaking good. And whenever that song shows up in the score, it's really great stuff. And it's quite magical. Like, you're like, oh yes, Roger Moore's final one. This is a great send-off song. Then we have Christopher Walken as Zorin and Grace Jones as Mayday, and they are great villains, right? Their big plan is very James Bond-like, and they just command the screen every time that they are on screen. But everything else just feels so tired, and it feels like this franchise is out of gas. At least Roger Moore's era is out of gas. Tanya Roberts is terrible in this movie. By far, my least favorite Bond girl. Really. She has no relevance on the plot. She is just brought in there, and she is a terrible actress. By far, the worst Bond girl in the series, in my eyes. The action scenes feel very unexciting. The plot, it is extremely dragging and boring. This movie is just not fun to watch. It just feels very been there, done that, feels tired, feels old. And it's not just Roger Moore. Like, he still gives a great performance, but it's clear that this franchise needed a boost, right? It needed a new start. And of course, we got that with Timothy Dalton, but that's for another video. So as for a ranking from worst to best, I would go A View to a Kill, The Man with the Golden Gun, Moonraker, For Your Eyes Only, Octopussy. Yes, I know, I put Octopussy ahead of For Your Eyes Only, but they're neck and neck. Then The Spy Who Loved Me and Live and Let Die. And again, those ones, depending on the day, you can ask me, oh, I like this one more, I like this one more. But I'm going to go today, Live and Let Die, as my favorite Roger Moore James Bond movie. Anyways, guys, tell me down in the comment section down below, what is your James Bond ranking for the Roger Moore era of films? Which one's your favorite? Which one's your least favorite? Which is your favorite Bond song from this era? Favorite Bond girl? Whatever it is, let me know down in the comment section down below. And if you're new and you want to see more videos just like this, definitely hit like and subscribe. And thank you so much for watching. Take care.